Welcome to the deep dive. We are exploring the alternative today. Our mission is to bypass all that exorbitant tuition, skip the academic jargon, and deliver a direct shortcut to the foundational mental models of business.
Yeah, we're pulling this directly from Josh Kaufman's incredible work, The Personal MBA.
Right. And the goal here is simple. Whether you are, an entrepreneur or an employee trying to navigate your company, or just someone insanely curious about how the economy actually works, these are practical tools you can apply immediately to your own life and career.
Because Kaufman's critique of the traditional business school model is sharp, and mostly because he proved the alternative actually works.
Yeah, he landed a management role at Procter & Gamble during his second year of college, right?
Exactly. He opted to self-educate rather than take on massive debt. And what he realized, and what we're really looking at in these sources, is that business is not magic.
It's not some mystical thing.
No, not at all. It doesn't require a specialized degree to understand. Stripped down to its absolute core, a business is simply a repeatable, interconnected process.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because he breaks this repeatable process down into 5 specific parts, and if you miss even one of them, the whole structure basically collapses.
Yeah, that interdependent structure is key. Every viable business relies on 5 essential components operating together. First up is value creation.
Right, you have to actually make something people want or need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second is marketing. You have to grab their attention. Third is sales.
Turning that attention into a transaction, right, by earning their trust.
You got it. Fourth is value delivery. You have to give them exactly what was promised and ensure they are totally satisfied. And finally, finance.
Because the system must bring in enough profit to make the whole endeavor sustainable.
Right. It's all like a biological system.
Yeah, like if your lungs stop working, your heart doesn't matter. If you have amazing marketing but terrible value delivery, you just have a really efficient machine for creating angry customers.
Which nobody wants. And if you have great value creation but no finance structure, you don't actually have a business. You're just running a philanthropy.
Which is fine, but it's not a business. That interconnectedness is why you can't just focus on one single department.
But naturally, everything has to start at the top of that chain, which is value creation. And when we look at the research, value is almost never about the physical materials of a product.
Right, it is deeply psychological.
Completely. It's entirely dictated by underlying human drives.
Which explains so much of our, bizarre consumer behavior. We love to tell ourselves that we make purely rational, functional purchasing decisions.
Oh, totally. We think we're so logical.
But so often we are driven by the need for social status. Look at the difference between a basic Timex watch and a luxury Rolex. Functionally, they do the exact same thing. They just tell you the time.
But nobody buys a Rolex just to know what time it is. The Rolex is purchased for what it signals to the rest of the world. It's this deep evolutionary drive to signal resources, to keep up with or surpass the social standing of our peers.
So businesses that understand this aren't just selling steel and glass. They're strategically building status signals into their offers.
Yeah, and another psychological driver that brilliant businesses tap into is what's called the hassle premium.
Oh, I love this concept. People will gladly hand over their hard-earned money to eliminate annoyance or effort or risk from their lives.
Absolutely. Think about paying someone to assemble your IKEA furniture.
Right. I am not paying for the particle board or the little Allen wrench. I am paying a premium to preserve my weekend and keep my sanity intact.
Because hassles are massive opportunities for value creation. If you look at your own daily workflows or the processes at your company, the areas with the most friction are the areas most ripe for innovation.
The more friction you remove from a customer's life, the more value you inherently deliver.
But, the trap here is spending months or years building a solution to a hassle, only to discover nobody actually wants to pay to have it solved.
Which is where testing comes in. And the story of Fitbit from the source material is a perfect example of doing this right.
Yeah, they were super smart about it.
They didn't manufacture thousands of devices, stick them in a warehouse, and just cross their fingers. They used a concept called the minimum viable offer, or MVO.
Right, just proving the concept first.
Exactly. They put up a basic website with a description and some computer renderings of the product to see if people would actually open their wallets to pre-order it.
And it worked out pretty well for them.
They raised millions of dollars in pre-orders, proving real, tangible customer demand before they took on any of the massive upfront manufacturing risk.
It's the ultimate form of risk mitigation.
Yeah.
You aren't relying on hypothetical survey data where people are just like, sure, I might buy that.
Because what people say and what they do are very different.
Exactly. You are collecting real data from real transactions. But of course, to get people to your MVO, you have to get them to notice it in the first place.
And getting noticed in a really crowded market requires what the sources call remarkability.
Meaning, quite literally, being worthy of a remark.
Right. Doing something so distinct that people feel compelled to point it out to someone else. I always think of those bizarre Vibram five-finger shoes.
Oh, the ones with the individual toes.
Yeah, those, they were so strange looking that if you saw someone wearing them at the gym, you just couldn't help but talk about them.
That weirdness was basically a built-in free advertising engine.
Exactly. But getting attention is really just the opening move, right?
Yeah, because once you have their eyes on you, words are rarely enough to convince them of the value. The analytical part of the human brain is just highly skeptical of marketing claims.
We've all been burned too many times.
Right. So to bypass that skepticism, you have to rely on demonstration. You have to show rather than tell.
And the P.T. Barnum example illustrates this perfectly. When the Brooklyn Bridge was first built, the public was terrified it was structurally unsound and was going to collapse into the river.
So what did he do? He didn't publish engineering reports.
No, and he didn't take out newspaper ads making promises. He paraded a literal herd of heavy elephants across the bridge.
That is just brilliant.
He provided a visceral, visual demonstration of strength. Or, think about Billy Mays on TV, wiping away a massive stain with OxyClean in one single swipe.
You really can't argue with what you just saw happen with your own eyes.
But wait, shouldn't you want to find a totally empty market so you can be the first mover? Like, I've always heard about the blue ocean strategy.
It's an incredibly common assumption, but it's actually fundamentally dangerous.
Really? Why?
Because if you stumble into a market with absolute zero competition, the most statistically probable reason is that there is simply no demand.
Oh, so people have likely tried it and failed because nobody wanted to buy it.
Exactly. Kaufman reframes this beautifully in the text. He says competition is actually free, highly valuable market research.
Right, because if they are surviving, someone is paying them.
Precisely. If other businesses are keeping the lights on in a specific space, they have already validated that a paying customer base exists.
That makes so much sense.
So your job isn't to run away and find an empty wilderness. Your job is to study those competitors. What are they doing poorly? What hassle are they completely failing to eliminate for the customer?
And that gap in their service is your entry point into a validated market. That completely flips the fear of competition on its head.
It really does.
Okay, so if we have a valuable product, we've demonstrated it, and we have people's attention. But as we know, attention is just noise if they don't actually hand over their money.
Right, you have to actually close the deal.
You have to move from marketing to sales. We have to cross what's known as the trust bridge.
Because sales, at its core, is just an exercise in trust.
Right.
And to understand how that trust translates to dollars, we have to look at the pricing uncertainty principle.
Which means price is not an inherent objective quality of an item, right?
Exactly. It is entirely dependent on context. Like if someone tried to sell you a small, shiny rock for $350 million, you'd think it was an absolute scam.
Totally. But if they provide the context that the rock is the Hope Diamond, suddenly the price is entirely justified by its history and rarity.
The object didn't change at all, just the framing did.
So the business sets the price, but it also has to provide the framing that makes that price feel like a bargain.
And one of the most effective ways to build that frame and earn trust simultaneously is through education-based selling.
Earning a transaction by genuinely making the prospect smarter about the market.
Exactly. The source material highlights Mark Ingram's bridal shop in New York City as an absolute masterclass in this.
Oh, yeah. The consultants there take a totally different approach. They don't just, push the most expensive dresses.
Right. They spend real time educating the brides.
They teach them about different silhouettes, the intricacies of fabrics, and what structural elements work best for their specific body type. They shift their role from salesperson trying to extract money to expert advisor.
And they build so much trust through that education that brides frequently end up buying one of the very first dresses they are shown. The expertise itself becomes a massive part of the value they're paying for.
But even when you do a great job educating, human beings still hesitate before pulling the trigger, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Kaufman actually outlines 5 universal barriers to purchase.
Yeah. The prospect is basically thinking it costs too much, it won't work for me, I can wait, or it's too difficult.
Those are the classic 5.
Listening to those 5 barriers, Honestly, this sounds exactly like the defense mechanisms people put up in dating.
Oh, that's interesting. The psychology is incredibly similar. How so?
Well, think about the wall of fear someone has before committing to a serious relationship. Costs too much. That's the emotional investment and vulnerability.
Right, right.
It won't work. They've had messy breakups before. It won't work for me. We have incompatible lifestyles. I can wait. I'm perfectly content being single right now.
And it's too difficult would be what relationships require constant compromise.
Exactly. If you want someone to commit, whether it's to a marriage or, a massive software contract, you can't just ignore those underlying fears.
You have to proactively anticipate them.
Yes, and systematically disarm them, proving why this specific partnership is worth taking the leap.
That is a really perfect mapping of the concept. Sales is just the systematic neutralization of those specific barriers.
And once you successfully get them to commit, you transition to value delivery.
Right, the moment of truth where you prove you actually deserve their trust. And there's a simple, critical formula governing this phase.
Quality equals performance minus expectations.
That formula is the entire secret behind the Zappos business model. They didn't blanket the internet with advertisements promising free, lightning-fast shipping.
They let you expect standard 5 to 7 day shipping.
Exactly. Then, they intentionally upgraded your order behind the scenes to get the shoes to your door days early.
So by intentionally keeping your expectations moderate, their actual performance just completely shattered the ceiling.
Which skyrocketed the customer's perception of quality. It's all about engineering a positive surprise.
And when you are delivering that value at scale, small details become immensely powerful through a concept called amplification, right?
Yes. A tiny tweak in a highly scalable system yields massive compounding results. The subtle inward necking design at the top of an aluminum soda can is a great example of this.
Oh, I've seen that. That specific shape saves just a tiny fraction of an ounce of metal per can.
Right, so on a single soda, the financial savings are basically zero.
But when a company produces billions of cans, that tiny amplified tweak creates enormous financial impact.
Really makes it worth looking at your own workflows to find where just a 1% improvement might amplify over a whole year.
But delivering that kind of surprise quality and scaling those systems isn't cheap. To afford those Zappos-level surprises without going bankrupt, the underlying math has to be rock solid.
Which brings us to the engine room of the business finance.
The area that typically intimidates people the most.
It is so full of complex spreadsheets and jargon. But Kaufman strips it down to its foundation. He argues that there are really only 4 levers a business can pull to increase revenue. Just 4.
That is a huge relief. So you can increase the number of customers, increase the size of each transaction, increase the frequency of transactions per customer, or simply raise your prices.
That's it. Every complex growth strategy you see in the market ultimately boils down to pulling one of those 4 levers.
And understanding them helps explain some business strategies that otherwise look totally insane, like late-night infomercials.
Oh yeah, those are a perfect example.
I always used to wonder how a company could afford to sell a trial product for just $20 when national TV airtime costs an absolute fortune. Like they are actively losing money on every single person who calls in.
They are. But they're doing it intentionally, because they deeply understand the relationship between lifetime value, or LTV, and allowable acquisition cost, AAC.
Right. They aren't trying to make a profit on a single $20 transaction.
Exactly. That initial purchase usually enrolls the customer in a monthly subscription. The company knows from their data that the average customer will stay subscribed for, let's say, 12 months.
So the lifetime value, the total revenue they will get from that one customer is actually hundreds of dollars.
Yes, and because the LTV is so high, their allowable acquisition cost, what they can spend on TV ads to get that customer, is also very high.
So they willingly take a financial hit on day one because they have the math to play the long game.
But playing a long game also requires knowing when to walk away, which brings up the massive trap of sunk costs.
Oh, this is one of the hardest psychological hurdles in business. Kaufman has a brilliant phrase for this. He says, "Don't continue to pour concrete into a bottomless pit."
It is so hard to do, though.
It is. Because if you've spent millions of dollars in 2 years on a failing software project, that time and money are gone. But our egos just hate admitting defeat.
So we throw more money at it to try and justify the initial mistake. We let past losses dictate future strategy, which is basically always a recipe for disaster.
To avoid those emotional traps and make objective, future-focused decisions, you have to rely on systems and data.
But there is a massive caveat here. governed by the rule of GI go garbage in, garbage out. If your underlying data is flawed, your perfectly logical decisions will still lead you right off a cliff.
Like Procter & Gamble experienced, they had a glitch that caused them to count automated search engine bots as human website visitors.
Right, so their traffic numbers looked incredible, but it was entirely inflated by machines.
Which means any marketing budget or strategic pivot they planned based on that data was built on a complete illusion. A flawless system processing garbage data still produces a garbage result. But, here's where it gets really interesting. Thinking about these incredibly robust systems naturally leads to a question about software and AI. If we can build these perfect, scalable, automated systems to handle data and delivery, won't human beings eventually become completely obsolete? Won't the system just run itself?
It's a completely logical leap to make, but the source material points out that this leads to the paradox of automation.
Okay, what's that?
Well, as it turns out, highly reliable automation doesn't make human workers obsolete. It actually makes human operators significantly more critical to the survival of the business.
Wait, that seems entirely counterintuitive. How does automating a job make the human more important?
Because the automated system is designed to handle the routine, predictable tasks with perfect efficiency. But no system can be programmed for every possible variable.
So it cannot handle novel, unexpected edge cases.
Precisely. When an automated system inevitably encounters a situation outside its programming, it fails. And because these systems operate at high speed or vast scale, they fail spectacularly.
Oh, like the massive Toyota acceleration recalls from years ago.
Exactly. When the automated safety or operational systems fail, you need highly skilled, deeply knowledgeable humans to immediately recognize the anomaly, step in, and manually stabilize the situation.
So automation makes the human's intervention rarer, but vastly more consequential when things actually go wrong.
We basically build these incredible machines, but they desperately need us to clean up the complex messes they just can't comprehend.
Which transitions us perfectly to the final major concept we need to explore today, the human operator. Because ultimately, all these elegant financial models and automated systems are being run by us.
And as biological creatures, we are deeply, deeply flawed.
We really are. We are operating with what the text calls caveman syndrome.
Right. Our neurological hardware evolved to keep us alive on the savannah like 100,000 years ago.
We are hardwired to constantly scan the horizon for predators, react aggressively to scarcity, and deeply fear social exclusion because back then, isolation literally meant death.
We are absolutely not wired for sitting in ergonomic chairs, deciphering corporate politics, or answering 200 emails a day.
And because of that mismatch, we try to force ourselves through the modern workday using sheer willpower. But the deeper you read into the psychology of work, you realize willpower is essentially a losing battle, isn't it?
It's a severely limited resource. Willpower is the energy of inhibition. Psychologists often refer to it as free won't.
Free won't. I like that.
It's your highly evolved prefrontal cortex desperately trying to hit the brakes and override your automatic ancient instincts. And that braking energy depletes rapidly with every single decision you make throughout the day.
So if we can't white-knuckle our way to success using willpower, what's the alternative? The answer is guiding structure.
Yes. You have to design your physical and digital environment so that the right choices become automatic.
The classic illustration for this is the myth of Odysseus tying himself to the mast of his ship.
Right. He knew that when he heard the song of the sirens, his willpower would completely evaporate and he would steer his ship right into the rocks.
So he changed his structure. He physically removed his ability to make the wrong choice. Like, if you want to eat healthier, you don't rely on willpower every time you walk past the pantry.
You design a guiding structure by not bringing the junk food into the house in the first place.
Because environment beats willpower every single time.
And one of the most toxic environments we've designed for our caveman brains is the modern digital workspace, which creates this total illusion of multitasking.
Multitasking doesn't actually exist, does it?
No, what you are doing is rapid task switching. And that thrashes the brain's working memory, leading to a severe cognitive switching penalty.
Every time you jump from a complex spreadsheet to a Slack message to an email and back, your brain has to burn massive amounts of metabolic energy just to reload the context of what you were doing.
So you feel entirely exhausted at 5 p.m., but you look back and realize you've accomplished absolutely nothing meaningful.
And this exhaustion feeds directly into akrasia, that frustrating psychological gap between knowing exactly what you should be doing and actually getting yourself to do it.
Right, so how do we fix that?
Well, I was reading about how we actually cross that gap and force ourselves to take action, and the sources highlight perceptual control theory. It's this idea that human beings don't just passively chase rewards or run away from punishments.
Okay, so what do we do?
We act to control our perceptions. The best way to visualize this is by looking at a standard household thermostat.
The thermostat is the perfect mechanical representation of perceptual control theory. Walk us through how that maps to human behavior.
So a thermostat has an internal baseline setting. Let's say you set it to 72 degrees. It isn't just passively sitting on the wall. It is constantly monitoring its perception of the room's temperature.
Right.
If someone leaves a window open and a cold draft drops the room to 65 degrees, the thermostat experiences a discrepancy. It takes action. It turns on the furnace to force reality back into alignment with its internal setting.
And humans operate the exact same way.
We do. We all have internal psychological baselines for how our career, our bank account, or our relationship should look. When our perception of reality deviates from those settings, say, our bank account drops too low, we experience anxiety.
So we take action.
Exactly. We turn on the heat and force our environment to match our internal baseline. We are constantly trying to regulate our world to match our internal thermostat.
It's a profound shift in how you view human motivation.
Mm.
People aren't just lazy or driven. Their thermostats are just set differently.
And understanding that is critical when you scale a business and start working with other people.
Because suddenly you aren't just managing a list of tasks. You are trying to coordinate a complex network of human thermostats, all desperately trying to maintain their own equilibrium.
Which perfectly explains why team dynamics are so notoriously difficult to manage. You put 5 thermostats in a room, they are going to fight over the temperature.
Exactly why intentional culture is required. To build psychological safety within a team so they can actually collaborate. Kaufman points to the golden trifecta: appreciation, courtesy, and respect.
Because if people don't feel biologically safe in their environment, their caveman brains just shut down higher level thinking.
But even if you master the psychology, you still have to battle the sheer mathematical reality of human interaction, known as communication overhead.
Right. Studies consistently show that as teams grow larger than 5 to 8 people, the overhead compounds.
Eventually, up to 80% of the job becomes just communicating with each other, coordinating schedules, giving updates, clarifying misunderstandings.
Leaving only 20% of the time for actual productive work. 80% just on managing the communication.
Think about the meetings you sit in every single week.
It highlights exactly why the most innovative work usually comes from small, surgical, highly elite teams where the communication overhead is minimal.
When you pull all of these models together, from understanding the deep psychology of what your customer values, to designing scalable financial systems that deliver it, right down to navigating the flawed biology of your own brain and the communication limits of your team, you end up with a comprehensive blueprint.
It's a real toolkit for navigating and thriving in almost any economic environment.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you right now? You've got this incredible mental toolkit spread out in front of you. We've journeyed from the psychological origins of value, across the trust bridge of sales, deep into the mathematical engine room of finance, and directly into the biological realities of the human operator.
But knowing this is just trivia unless you actually apply it.
Right. So here's your challenge. Look at the projects on your desk right now. Pick one mental model we discussed today. Maybe you need to look for a hassle you can eliminate. Maybe you need to stop relying on willpower and build a guiding structure for your workday.
Pick one concept and run a small, tangible experiment tomorrow to make it real in your own life.
And as you run those experiments, whether you are building a new startup or climbing the ranks in your current career, there's one final thing to consider.
Yeah, I want to leave you with one final, incredibly powerful concept from Kaufman's work. We spend so much of our lives optimizing for revenue, analyzing scale, and chasing status signals. But Kaufman argues that at the end of the day, the only metric of success that actually matters is this. Are you spending your time doing things you like, with people you enjoy, in a way that keeps you financially sufficient?
Wow.
It forces you to pause and ask the ultimate question. Are you just designing a highly optimized business, or are you actively designing a life that truly works for you?
That really is the ultimate metric to measure against, because if you spend your entire life building that incredibly expensive, really prestigious money-making machine we talked about at the top of the show, but you absolutely dread pulling the lever every single day, then the machine is worthless no matter what the spreadsheets say.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take these models, look at your own work, and keep making those aha moments happen.